Quotes used in the Gilligan's Island series that aired in the 1960s. Ah, the 1960s. What a time to be alive. We got classics like The Andy Griffith Show, Bewitched, and of course, everybody's personal favorite, Gilligan's Island. Sure, it was probably the least believable of the bunch, but somehow it wormed its way into many hearts and holds a weird little spot in popular culture today. Why? Well, quirks and all, Gilligan's Island was a pretty solid show. With light-hearted humor and absurd scenarios, it hauled viewers into a world where coconut radios made sense. But boat repairs? Not so much. And honestly, that's part of the charm. The goofs, the bloopers, they made it even more lovable. So today, we're diving into some of the funniest and strangest mistakes the show ever made that you probably never even noticed. Let's get into it. Quick backstory. Before we slap on some sunscreen and get lost in the bloopers, let's backtrack for a moment and talk about how this wonderfully weird show even came to be. Gilligan's Island premiered on September 26, 1964, and ran for 3 seasons on CBS, wrapping up in 1967. It was created by Sherwood Schwartz, the same guy who later gave us the Brady Bunch. According to Sherwood, the show was kind of supposed to be some kind of social experiment in disguise. The concept was simple. A group of wildly different people are forced to cooperate when stranded on a desert island. Kind of rings a similar tune as Lord of the Flies, doesn't it? But things thankfully never got that serious. Instead, somewhere between the concept and the execution, things got very silly, very fast. The premise? Simple. A 3-hour tour on the SS Minnow goes sideways, and 7 passengers end up stranded on a tropical island in the middle of nowhere. Every episode revolved around their hilarious attempts to escape and their surprisingly consistent failure to do so. Seriously, a group of 7 grown adults doesn't have a single brain cell to spare? Anyway, the cast was made up of instantly recognizable archetypes. There's Gilligan, the bumbling first mate, played by Bob Denver. The skipper, the gruff but lovable captain. The professor, who's pretty much the only logical thinker with his coconut-powered inventions. Then there's Ginger, the glamorous Hollywood starlet. Mary Ann, the sweet girl next door. And Thurston Howell III, and his wife Lovey, the rich, out-of-touch couple who somehow brought luggage for a weekend trip. One thing that made the show work was how each character leaned heavily into their stereotype. And honestly, that was kind of the point. The writers used them as walking punchlines, exaggerating their quirks for laughs. And the formula worked. Despite initial mixed critical reviews, the show was a hit with audiences. It wasn't exactly highbrow TV, but it was fun. And this was one of the reasons it was so loved. The show didn't try to be anything more than what it was, a quirky show for a good time. And for that reason, it built a loyal fan base. Even after its cancellation, the series lived on through reruns, spin-offs, cartoon adaptations, and even reunion movies. Just a fun fact before we dive in. Did you know that the now-famous theme song almost didn't include the Professor and Mary Ann by name? That's right. Early versions simply ended with, "and the rest." But after lots and lots of complaints, the opening was re-recorded to include them. Oh, and did you know the SS Minnow was actually named after Newton Minnow, the former FCC chairman who once called television a vast wasteland? Now that's a subtle jab we can get behind. Anyway, now that we've beached ourselves back in the 60s, let's get right into all the chaos and facts you never noticed. Mrs. Howell opens her eyes while unconscious. Let's be honest, Gilligan's Island was never trying to be a perfectly polished show. If it were, we might not have taken it seriously. Instead, it thrived on silliness, slapstick, and sometimes complete chaos. So we've got to start with one of the silliest mistakes. In the episode titled Man with a Net, Lord Beasley, an eccentric butterfly collector who's more interested in his pursuits than in rescuing the stranded group, visits the island. Just before he leaves, He serves the castaways a drink made from fermented berries. But what he doesn't realize is that it has a strong intoxicating effect, and after drinking it, the unknowing castaways are out cold. However, here's where things get a tad bit interesting. If you look closely enough, you'll notice that Mrs. Howell, played by Natalie Schafer, accidentally opens her eyes, even though she's supposed to be knocked out like the rest. It's quick, and you can barely notice it. But if you're eagle-eyed like some of us, you just might catch on to it. Natalie was likely under the impression that the cameras had stopped rolling, but it's a fun quirk that makes the show all the more endearing. The boat keeps changing. This one's for the continuity nerds and boat lovers. Ever noticed how the SS Minnow seems to have a bit of an identity crisis? In the opening credits, as it leaves the harbor, the Minnow dramatically leans to the left, almost like it's foreshadowing the chaos to come. It's battling the waves, looking like it's already halfway into a disaster movie. But in the closing credits, boom! She's upright, balanced, and calm, sailing like a champion, not a lean in sight. Did someone give her a chiropractic adjustment off-screen? And here's the real kicker. The boat used in the calm harbor scenes is clearly not the same as the one tossed around in the storm. Different size, different shape, and a completely different structure altogether. The storm boat looks bulkier, more rugged, like it's built for drama, while the harbor Minnow is smaller, sleeker, and probably just a regular charter boat. So, what happened? Did they swap boats mid-storm? Did the Minnow evolve like a Pokemon into something sturdier before sinking? Or was the continuity guy just on his lunch break that day? The most likely answer is simple. They used stock storm footage and paired it with actual shots of the rented Minnow, assuming no one would notice. But 60 years later, here we are. Mystery figures in the opening credits. Still on the opening credits, as the SS Minnow pulls away from the dock in the sequence, the camera sweeps across the marina. And if you pause at just the right moment, you'll spot something odd. Two unidentified figures standing in the background. They're not part of the 7 castaways, and the show never acknowledges them. It's a quick, easily overlooked moment, but for longtime viewers and continuity hawks, it's one of the show's most enduring mysteries. What makes this blooper so fascinating is how long it flew under the radar. When the show first aired, audiences had no way to pause or re-watch scenes. Viewers were focused on the light-hearted story and likely missed small visual details like this. But with the rise of DVDs, streaming platforms, and high-definition remasters, fans have been able to pause, rewind, and analyze every frame. This tiny moment, once buried in the blur of a moving shot, now stands as a classic example of how modern technology has turned casual TV watching into a frame-by-frame investigation. Gilligan's socks disappear mid-episode. This is one of those continuity errors that you might not notice at first, but once you do, it's hard to unsee. We're talking about Gilligan's socks, or should we say, the mystery of the disappearing socks. In several episodes, particularly during intense jungle chase scenes, Gilligan can be seen wearing his signature long socks. But here's where it gets weird. One minute, he's rocking those socks, looking like he's ready for a casual hike. The next minute, poof! They're gone like magic. The camera cuts to a different angle, and suddenly, Gilligan's legs are sock-free. Now this happens multiple times across the series, and while it's easy to chalk it up to a little on-set goof, the reason behind it might be a bit more practical than we think. Picture this. It's probably sweltering hot on set, and Bob Denver, like the trooper he was, decided to ditch the socks between takes for comfort. Honestly, we could definitely see that happening, and it's pretty understandable. The man was filming in tropical conditions for hours, and those socks? Not exactly breathable. But here's the kicker. In the next shot, the socks are back on. So, it's not even like they're consistently off. The sockless shots just appear randomly, usually in the heat of the action. One second, Gilligan's running through the jungle with his socks on. The next second, he's running barefoot. And then, bam, they're back again. Talk about an unsolved mystery, or rather, a continuity error. Anyway, for fans who loved the quirky details of Gilligan's Island, this disappearing sock act became one of the funnier and more noticeable bloopers. It's the kind of thing that adds to the charm of the show, those little imperfections that we can't help but laugh at as we watch the castaways struggle through all kinds of wacky situations. But what about the professor's wandering coconut radio? The mystery of the coconut radio. The professor, known for his ingenious inventions crafted from coconuts and bamboo, managed to build a functioning radio to keep the castaways informed. However, this crucial piece of equipment seems to have a mind of its own as it frequently changes locations throughout the series. One moment, it's safely nestled inside the bamboo hut, providing shelter from the elements. And in another, it's inexplicably found on the beach, exposed to sand and surf. Occasionally, it even appears deep within a cave. It's an inconsistency that has raised very serious questions, such as, did the radio sprout legs? Or perhaps the professor invented a teleportation device off-screen. We're kidding. We know these location shifts are likely due to production oversights. Still, it adds a layer of unintentional humor to the show. But does the humor hold up when behind-the-scenes equipment sneaks into the frame? Crew equipment accidentally appears. It's not uncommon for behind-the-scenes gear to sneak its way into the final cut of a show. Seriously, someone literally left a coffee cup in the middle of a Game of Thrones feast. That's a multi-million-dollar fantasy world brought crashing down by a rogue coffee run. Iconic. And Gilligan's Island? Oh, it had its fair share of these production hiccups, long before the internet could meme them into the immortality. Just take a closer look at a few episodes, and you'll start spotting shadows that clearly don't belong to any castaway. Sometimes it's a boom mic. Other times, you'll catch the outline of a camera operator lurking just off frame. These aren't blink, and you miss it moments either, because once you see them, you can't unsee them. One of the most obvious bloopers happens during a nighttime jungle scene. Everything's supposed to be dark and mysterious, but if you look just past the palm fronds, you can clearly see the bright outline of a studio light beaming through. No moonlight here, folks. Just a giant backlot flood lamp doing overtime. Just like that, the fourth wall is broken. The deserted island illusion crumbles, and you're reminded that this was all shot on a Hollywood soundstage. No tropical breeze, no crashing waves, just a very well-lit set in California with a few potted plants and a clever camera angle. The mystery of the trunk full of clothes. Ever wondered why Ginger had so many dresses for a 3-hour tour? We're not just talking 1 or 2 glamorous looks. She came fully stocked with sequins, feathers, high heels, gloves, fur wraps, and enough accessories to host a red carpet on the beach. It's like she was preparing for the Oscars, not a casual sightseeing boat ride. But the mystery doesn't stop with Ginger. Marianne, too, has a surprisingly diverse wardrobe for someone supposedly on a short vacation. Cute dresses, tied crop tops, clean jeans, perfectly ironed skirts, and somehow everything stays spotless despite jungle hikes, rainstorms, and building bamboo furniture. Even the Howells change outfits constantly. Mr. Hawkumusu. Howell's got his signature blazer collection and neckties, while Lovey seems to have brought her entire Palm Beach closet. Matching hats, pearls, silk gloves, even a parasol. Did they charter a fashion truck along with the Minnow? We've got just one question. Who packs like this for a 3-hour cruise? Or did they somehow figure out they were going to get stranded? Or perhaps the professor invented a portable dry cleaner using palm fronds and static electricity. Some fans have speculated that wardrobe continuity wasn't a top priority for the production team. And most viewers at the time didn't notice or care. And it's not just the fans who think this is strange. Even Dawn Wells, who plays Mary Ann, has joked about the clothes situation. But watching now, it's one of those hilariously glaring inconsistencies that add to the show's charm. Changing island geography. The layout of the island is notoriously inconsistent and feels like a fever dream. In one episode, the lagoon might appear on the left. In another, it's on the right. Sometimes the huts are nestled deep within the jungle. Other times, they're conveniently adjacent to the beach. It's as if the island itself is in a constant state of flux, reminiscent of a tropical Bermuda Triangle. Anyway, these discrepancies can be attributed to the show's production choices. The lagoon was constructed on the CBS Studio Center backlot in Los Angeles, and its appearance varied depending on the filming angle and set modifications. Additionally, different real-life locations were used for various shots. The pilot was filmed at Malua Beach on Kauai, Hawaii. The first season's opening credits featured Sandy Cay near the Bahamas, and later seasons used Mokulauea, Coconut Island near Oahu. These varied filming locations contributed to the inconsistent portrayal of the island's geography. Finally, the show's maps of the island changed over time. In episodes like Forward March and Man with a Net, the island's layout differs, with waterways bending in opposite directions. In Splashdown, a map from space omits significant features like mountains and clearings. Animals that don't belong there. The island was supposed to be uncharted and deserted, a paradise isolated from civilization. Yet time and time again, the castaways encounter a bizarre variety of animals that definitely do not belong on a remote tropical island. From monkeys swinging through the trees to tarantulas scurrying across the sand, the island seems to host a zoo's worth of wildlife. And it doesn't stop there. In one episode, the castaways find themselves face-to-face with an alligator, which seems oddly comfortable on the beach. And even more ridiculously, a lion makes an appearance. While it's fun to watch, it raises the obvious question of where these animals came from. Was there some sort of bizarre zoo shipwreck? Did the island happen to have a hidden sanctuary full of exotic creatures? Or were the castaways living in a secret wildlife reserve that no one ever mentioned? The more likely explanation: stock footage. Many of these animals were actually repurposed from other CBS shows. The network frequently used stock footage of animals from other productions, including Lassie, The Brady Bunch, and other adventure-themed shows, to save costs on new footage. As a result, Gilligan's Island sometimes felt like a wild kingdom, rather than a deserted island. Even more absurd, the animals often seem to appear out of nowhere, as if they were waiting for their cue to show up. One minute, there's no sign of any wildlife, and the next, an exotic creature appears, somehow blending into the setting without explanation. In fact, the lion episode is one of the most notorious examples of the show's disregard for plausibility, as lions are not known to roam tropical islands, or any islands at all for that matter. Cast members breaking character. Don't we all just love it when an actor breaks character? It just reminds us that beneath the acting facade, there's a real human. In the show, there are only a few glorious moments where the actors almost break, but when you catch on to it, it's pretty hilarious. For example, Bob, who plays Gilligan, was especially prone to smirking or sneaking a look off camera during bloopers. In one scene, you can catch him suppressing a laugh while the skipper yells at him. It's subtle, so pay attention so you don't miss it. Speaking of Bob, let's talk about a subtle but surprising detail. Gilligan's wedding ring. In the episode, They're Off and Running, a comedic tale about turtle racing on the island, there's a moment where Gilligan lifts his hand, and there it is. A shiny gold wedding ring, clearly visible on Bob's finger. The problem? Gilligan is famously single. No mention of a sweetheart back home. No island romance subplot, though some fans secretly shipped him with Mary Ann, and definitely no backstory involving a wife. So how do we explain it? Well, the ring wasn't actually part of the character. It was Bob's real-life wedding band, and the wardrobe team simply didn't bother to have him take it off. Or maybe he refused. According to cast interviews and trivia books, Bob was known to wear it on set throughout the series, and it slipped past editors more than once. But this episode is one of the more noticeable slip-ups where the camera lingers just long enough for fans to spot it. The island's got phone reception? Yes, this actually happened. In one later season episode, the castaways almost make a phone call to the mainland using the professor's makeshift transmitter. It doesn't work, obviously, but it raises a great question. If they could call out, why didn't they build a radio tower years ago? The technology was always just convenient enough to be believable for the plot, but inconsistent enough to make fans yell at their screens. And that's exactly how many fans felt with Gilligan's hat swap. In Season 3, Gilligan's hat swap. In the episode, Our Vines Have Tender Apes, there's a noticeable continuity error. As Gilligan marches over a cliff, he's wearing the skipper's hat. However, when he's hanging on a branch moments later, his regular white hat is back on his head. Did he do this with some of that unexplainable island magic? The Unseen Pilot. Did you know that the original pilot episode of the show, titled Marooned, was filmed in November 1963, but remained unaired until October 16, 1992? This pilot featured significant differences from the series that eventually aired. Notably, the characters of Ginger and the Professor were portrayed by different actors, Kit Smythe and John Gabriel, respectively. Plus, Mary Ann's character was noticeably absent. Instead, there was a character named Bunny, played by Nancy McCarthy. Both Ginger and Bunny were depicted as secretaries, contrasting with the later portrayals of Ginger as a movie star and Mary Ann as a farm girl. The pilot also lacked the iconic theme song, opting instead for a calypso-style tune. These changes were made after CBS reviewed the pilot and suggested modifications to the cast and character dynamics, leading to the recasting and reimagining of certain roles before the series officially premiered in 1964. Filming during a historic event. The final day of filming, the Gilligan's Island pilot, coincided with an important moment in American history, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963. The cast and crew were shooting the final scenes at Honolulu Harbor when they received the tragic news. As one would imagine, the event cast a somber mood over the production. But despite the circumstances, the team completed the necessary scenes. Interestingly, the pilot's opening sequence, which shows the SS Minnow departing the harbor, includes an American flag flying at half-staff, a subtle nod to the national tragedy. The skipper's real name. On a lighter note, while fans commonly refer to the character as the skipper, his full name is actually Jonas Grumby. This detail is revealed in the first episode aired, Two on a Raft, when the castaways are introduced. Despite this early mention, the show predominantly uses his nickname, and the full name is rarely referenced in subsequent episodes. The skipper, portrayed by Alan Hale Jr., is characterized as the authoritative yet kind-hearted captain of the SS Minnow, often taking charge of the group's survival efforts on the island. His background as a Navy man is occasionally alluded to, adding depth to his leadership role among the castaways. Gilligan's first name debate. Speaking of names, what's Gilligan's first name? It's a question that has stirred up debates for decades. Throughout the series, Gilligan is known solely by his last name. But did you know that series creator Sherwood intended for Gilligan's first name to be Willie? It's a detail that was never mentioned in the show, with Bob even believing that Gilligan was the character's first name. This discrepancy was never resolved within the series, and the character's full name remains a topic of discussion among fans. But in our opinion, this ambiguity adds an element of mystery to Gilligan's background, aligning with the show's lighthearted and whimsical tone. The Coconut Cup Conundrum. In the first season, the production used real coconut shells as drinking cups to enhance the show's authenticity. However, the natural porosity of coconut shells led to practical issues. The cups would absorb liquids and become soggy, making them impractical for repeated use. This problem prompted the production team to replace the real coconut cups with ceramic replicas that maintained the desired aesthetic while providing durability. So those refreshing-looking coconut cups you see on the show, they're all fake. Anyway, this change improved the practicality of filming scenes involving drinking vessels and actually contributed to the show's visual consistency. Tina Louise's character concerns. Tina Louise, who portrayed Ginger Grant, initially expressed dissatisfaction with the direction her character was taking, particularly regarding an increase in sarcastic dialogue that deviated from the original concept of a glamorous movie star. Her concerns led to discussions with the show's producers, resulting in the replacement of the original director with Richard Donner. Under Richard's direction, the character of Ginger returned to its intended portrayal, aligning more closely with Louise's expectations. It was a change that not only improved Louise's experience on set, but also contributed to the show's overall success, as the characters' dynamics became more cohesive. The Harlem Globetrotters. Visit. In 1981, the Gilligan's Island franchise expanded with a made-for-TV movie titled The Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island. This film featured the famous basketball team crash landing on the island, where they joined the castaways in a plot involving a mad scientist and his robots. The Globetrotters' athletic prowess was showcased in a climactic basketball game against the robots, blending sports and comedy in a unique crossover. This movie was notable for reuniting the original cast and introducing a new character, a resort manager, indicating a development in the island's storyline. Plus, the film also added a distinctive chapter to the Gilligan's Island legacy, echoing the show's enduring popularity and its capacity for creative storytelling. And this brings us to the biggest blooper you probably never even noticed. The biggest blooper of them all. Gilligan's Island has plenty of silly mistakes and continuity errors, from disappearing socks to teleporting huts. But perhaps the biggest blooper of all is the one that's baked right into the show's premise. Despite dozens of opportunities to escape the island, they never do. Let's back up a bit. The show's entire hook is that 7 castaways are stranded on an uncharted desert island, with no way to communicate with the outside world. That's the tension. That's the reason we tune in. And yet, week after week, episode after episode, people and packages somehow find their way to this so-called lost island with zero issue. Cosmonauts accidentally land there. Mad scientists build secret laboratories there. Pilots crash land. Movie producers arrive by boat. And one time, Santa Claus shows up. Not kidding. They receive love letters, newspaper clippings, and even radio broadcasts with perfect clarity. They have functioning technology and hold elaborate parties. At one point, they even host a film festival. And still, no rescue. One of the most famous examples comes from the episode The Postman Cometh, in which the castaways receive a literal bag of mail from the outside world, including letters from home. Somehow, a random postman manages to find this hidden island, but instead of sending help, he just delivers the mail and disappears. It's so absurd that even the characters seem momentarily confused before shrugging it off and continuing with their day. In another episode, The Friendly Physician, a mad scientist uses his submarine to travel to the island, sedate and kidnap the castaways, then bring them back for weird experiments. He has advanced communication tech, full mobility, and an exit strategy. Again, no one thinks to just go with him. Fans have pointed this out for years. On Reddit and fan forums, viewers jokingly debate how many times the castaways could have flagged down a visitor or followed them off the island. Some theories suggest that the writers were purposefully poking fun at serialized logic, and others like us simply believe the show was never meant to be taken seriously. Just a wacky cartoon with live actors. And to an extent, that's true. But even within absurd comedy, there's usually some internal logic. On the Flintstones, no one questions why dinosaurs are used as vacuum cleaners, but the world has rules. With Gilligan's Island, that logic collapses when we realize they were never actually isolated. The door was open. They just didn't walk through it. So why didn't they leave? Well, partly because of the rules of 1960s sitcoms. Back then, network shows were built on a reset button model. Every episode had to return to the same status quo, same setting, same stakes, same relationships. It made the show easy to syndicate, rewatch, or jump into mid-season. A rescue would have meant the series had to end, or at least completely reinvent itself. But that doesn't make the central irony any less hilarious. These characters were surrounded by escape routes, technology, and visitors. The only thing stopping them was the script. In hindsight, this giant blooper is what makes the show so endlessly fun to dissect. It invites you to suspend disbelief, then dares you to spot the cracks in its logic. And the more you look, the more absurd it gets. It's a classic case of so bad it's good television. But for fans, that's part of the charm. You don't watch Gilligan's Island expecting realism. You watch it for the coconut radios, the goofy pratfalls, and yes, the ridiculous plot holes that somehow made the show unforgettable. All of these bloopers add up to one conclusion. Gilligan's Island was messy, but in the most charming way possible. It didn't need airtight continuity or perfect logic. It leaned into the chaos. And honestly, that's part of what makes it so fun to revisit. Which one of these bloopers did you already know about? Tell us what we missed in the comments below. Thanks for watching.